Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Today. This is Dale Parrish, the host, along with Ken Koshuba, our co-host, State Communications Coordinator for Indiana. Ken, before we go any further, I want to thank you for filling in last Monday. And I think you and Debbie Stewart acted as co-host, right? And
Yeah. Debbie was the filling in on that co-pilot chair, and she did a great job. And we had fun. We had fun. We made some mistakes, but we had fun.
Well, good. I want to thank you for filling in. As you all maybe know, I was in the process of moving. My wife and I downsizing from our house to into a retirement community here in our city. So quite busy the past few weeks, and so I was in the process of moving actually Monday, and so Ken and Debbie filled in, and I appreciate that. So you guys
did a great job. Now you're ready to go on vacation, right?
I could use one, yes, that's for sure. Okay. Well, listen, I want to just right off the bat, just tell everybody, COS Today, we're trying to save the country with Convention of States. That's what we're trying to do here. Save the country with Convention of States. Everything we try to do centers around Convention of States, what we stand for, what we're trying to do, our core values. So that's what we're all about, folks. Let's take a little brief moment here and let's let our friend Maringo Mike say a few words to us. Okay, Ken?
Yep.
All right. Well, that's a reminder for me to show Maringo Mike. Okay.
In the program, please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the notifications bell so you'll always know when we go live. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us on our mission to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Now, back to the program.
Yeah, Maringo Mike. Yeah, boy.
Hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that notification button.
That's right. Yep. Well, listen, let's jump right into our first segment. This is the segment we call the In Focus segment. And we bring on a few guests that we have every week. And we just talk a little bit about what's caught our attention in the news. Not much going on, of course, but
never is.
So, you know, what's caught our attention, or what's our focus been here recently in the news? So let's bring on our guests this evening, and let's hear what they have to say. So here we go with Mr. Brett Sturley, Convention of States State Director for the state of Missouri. How you doing, Brett?
Good evening, and good to join you and Ken again, and all our listeners and other guests. And yeah, it's definitely been a slow news weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah, slow news weekend. There you go. That's right. All right, and next, Mr. Tim Heidenreich. Tim's the prayer coordinator for COS in the state of Indiana. Retired military, and probably a number of other things, Ken, Tim. Well, we just don't have time to list them all right now. But how you doing?
Good, fine, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thank you. And one of our regulars, Mr. Gary Harbaugh, who is the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. Probably not very busy guy these days. I imagine he's
nothing much to do.
Nothing much to do, not at all. You and Brett, I'm sure, don't really have much going on at all, do you?
No, but we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, Brett was muted. I didn't do that, so.
Hey, yeah, no, that's okay. I know when I'm going to get the hook.
Well, I'll tell you, Tim, why don't we start out with you? I know you said you had 2 or 3 different topics, but why don't you pick one and go with it? Go with what you want to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the strategy that's going on in Iran because I just think it's brilliant what's been happening here. Um, what he's been doing is choking them out lately. I think this idea of stopping the bombing, have a ceasefire, rearm ourselves, give our pilots some rest, take care of our wounded, that kind of thing, and then choke them down by closing the Strait of Hormuz, I think was a brilliant move. And then the other day, when he was going to send his delegates to go talk to them, he just called it off and said, forget it. We're not going over there because the last time they didn't show up. I think it was a perfect turnaround to say, we don't trust you guys even to show up to a meeting. So we're not going. I think that was perfect. And
now he has it. I get confused on this. He hasn't shut down the Strait of Hormuz, right? He's
it's
just
a blockade for everything going in and out of Iran.
Right. Blockade
Yeah.
on Iran. Yes.
Yeah, blockade on Iran. Yeah. Anyway, but because that's going to, when their oil wells deteriorate, as I heard a guy saying on the 6 o'clock news tonight, he said he thinks they have about a week left before those oil wells will start to break down.
Right.
Boy, that's a lot of pressure. But I would suggest one more thing. If he ever calls me this evening, I'm going to mention one more thing. I'm going to say, I think you ought to do like Truman did with Japan. Truman didn't bomb the whole country or invade the whole country. He just took out Nagasaki or Hiroshima. Then the next day he took out Nagasaki and he said Tokyo is going to be next. I think he ought to start adding more pressure by saying, we're going back to bombing, but we're going to take out, like, let's just say 10 bridges and 10 plants today. The next day we'll take out 10 more. The next day we'll take out 10 more. See how long they can stand that pressure too, on top of all the pressure that they have. I'd like to see him squeeze those guys a little more. Maybe they'll give up a little faster. They're trying to drag it out as long as they can. So I like his strategy. I think he's brilliant.
I think they're definitely trying to play their game that they normally play, trying to stretch this out. But I am still waiting and hoping to hear when the people are going to rise up and when the people are going to play a role in this. I mean, do any of you hear anything about the role of the people playing in the government, in the new government, or anything? Do you hear much about that?
I think they're getting too many of them. I mean, look how many of them they've killed already, and they still have all the guns. I think it's going to take a lot of pain. You only get people to change their behavior when they feel too much pain, right? That's when people start to do stuff. That's why I think if you had a strategy of continuing some targeted bombing, that would just continually build that pressure. Maybe it would cause them to do their revolution faster.
Yeah.
I don't know if they know who's in charge. I mean, you've got the one-legged guy in the coma that we bombed. That he had his first public appearance was a cardboard cutout, which that's not exactly a statement of confidence there. And then you have the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that he's kind of acting like he's the leader and he's butting heads with the one-legged dude. And then like what Tim said, they slaughtered 40, 50, 60,000, who knows how many thousands of their own citizens they killed. And I know that's one thing that Mark Levin was talking about, that he said, hey, you know what, we need to go in and we need to arm the Iranians. I'm like, okay, well, which ones?
Right.
I mean, which ones do we give the guns to? It's not going to be, and we're not nation building. And that was one thing, at least with President Trump's strategy. He doesn't have any type of history of mission creep. It's just, hey, we're going to go in here. This is what we're going to do. And then we're done. You guys need to take it over and figure it out. We're not going to have a Western government in there, but hopefully we'll have somebody who's a little bit more amenable to not poking the bear and not trying to, be a international funder of terrorism like what the Iranian regime was, and the Ayatollahs. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's it's quite a conundrum.
To me, that's one of the key objectives of this whole war is the I guess regime change is what needs to take place, but it needs to be where the Iranian people are involved. However, I understand the Iranian population is very, very subdivided into very, very different sects. But so how that occurs, I don't know. But it seems to me that's got to be one of the main objectives, as well as eliminating any possibility of a nuclear bomb. So,
yeah. Ken, did you have some ideas about this when we were in the pre-show here?
Pardon me?
I was talking to Ken Koshuba. Didn't you have some ideas that you wanted to bring up about the strategy in the pre-show we were talking?
Oh yeah.
It was Dale, I think. It wasn't me. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was you. Sorry. I was talking about about Iran.
Dale, I think you had something that you wanted to add on that, wasn't there something on Iran?
No, I just talked about it. I just talked about it. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think the strategy, Tim, I agree with you. I think it's I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks now that he's 10 times ahead of anybody in their thinking. We brought it up in a show before about the fact that I know even last week it was talked about the moon and space, and there's a space war going on, and he's ahead of it. He's ahead of it there. He's trying to beat China to the moon. For what reasons? Well, because technology and AI and all that gets wrapped into what his thinking is, and his global thoughts as far as Iran is concerned is if he forces people, and this is already being shown that by blocking Iran, these ships are already being rerouted to buy oil from us. Well, that's brilliant. It's brilliant.
yeah.
So they're when Iran says, well, we're gonna raise the price to put the squeeze on you, he says, fine, raise the price. People come buy it from us. So I mean, he's got them in a loop.
There is one other thing that I did want to mention about the Iran thing. Now that I think
I knew I'd bring it out of you.
I don't know if I agree totally with Trump pulling the negotiators out of meeting with Iran. It seems to me like at this stage that he ought to be willing to meet with them anytime, even if it's unproductive, but at least be willing to meet.
But all it does is it lengthens it, Dale. It just lengthens the process because they're never going to give anything. They're just going to keep saying, well, we need another week to think about this, or we need another 2 weeks. They've been doing that all these years to all the other presidents. That's why I like him just walking away and saying, when you come up with our conditions, call us. Until then, we're going to keep choking you to death.
It is some posturing.
Yeah, the strategy is really brilliant because the threat always was, oh my gosh, Iran could shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That was their ace card. And Trump just flipped that on his head by saying, you're not going to shut it down. We are going to shut it down. We are going to control who gets through there. And after he sunk their Navy, there's not a lot they can do about it. And so that was brilliant. As far as him being willing to negotiate, I think Trump is looking at it and saying, I'm not going to negotiate because I don't know who's really in power. You got the one-legged Ayatollah. You got the IRGC, which is protects the Ayatollah and the religious fanatics. And then you've got the military. And it's my understanding that some people are defecting from the military. The military and the IRGC are not all on the same page. And if there is essentially a civilian or an overthrow of the religious fanatics, it's going to probably come from the military because the people are not armed. It's once the military gets sick of it and shutting down Iran's ability to sell oil, time is on Trump's side. The longer this goes on, the worse it is for them. It doesn't hurt us, the worse it is for them. And so I think it's a great strategy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing here. You know, for years and years, Iran has said, we're the great Satan. And they want to kill the Jews, Israel, and they want to kill America, the great Satans. And it just seemed like our presidents never believed them. Just didn't do anything to really stop them, just tried to push it off. Trump believed them, and he said, I know you're going to use this nuclear weapon if you get it, so I'm going to take that ability away from you. I think we ought to be using the exact same thing with the filibuster, because the Democrats have said, as soon as we get in power, we're going to change the rules. We're going to pack the court. We're going to bring 2 more states in. Why don't we believe them enough to just say, then we're not going to allow that to happen. Tomorrow, we're changing the filibuster, and we're going to put in SAVE Act, and we're going to put in constitutional amendments and things that we want. Why wait for them to do it? I think it's the same strategy, personally. Just believe what they say.
Yeah, there's a wide gap between the courage of Donald Trump and John Thune. I think there's a big gap there. But you know, Tim, I think you're right about the strategy, and we're going to talk about China a little bit later in the show. But you look at I think was it 37% of Iran's oil went to China. Well, went to China, and I thought I heard something like 50 or 60% of the oil that China uses comes from Iran. All that's choked off now. So now that compromises China. That makes them to where they cannot move on Taiwan, and that damages their economy as well. So I think it's a total, what he's done foreign policy wise, I think he'll go down as the greatest foreign policy president ever. And he's completely rebalancing the whole entire geopolitical
rearranging the geopolitical layout of the Mideast for sure, of the world, quite honestly. All right, guys. Okay, let's move on. Gary, Tim, if we have time, I know you had some other topics. We'll come back to you if we have time. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Gary, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, obviously one of the big news items about the assassination attempt, I believe that Cole Allen had a savior complex that occupied his brain. It occupied his brain like an ant colony occupies a little pile of sand or dirt. And these ants were planted there by the voices of the mainstream media, late night talkers who pretend to be comedians, and the legions of social media sycophants who echo those sentiments. All that was, you know, the people who have attempted to assassinate Trump, I think they all thought they were doing some great public service. And it's because there's some sick people in our society that are promoting these ideas that are really utterly not based in reality. And so I don't know, there's much we can do about it, but I think we have to recognize that, you know, this guy wasn't a nut job, but he thought he was doing a good deed.
Apparently this guy was a very intelligent man. It's really, he's something went wrong with him somewhere along the line. Well, I think that happens with a lot of these people like this. They're intelligent people, but something goes wrong somewhere along the line.
He was he was elected Teacher of the Month in December of 2024.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of intelligent people that whenever Donald Trump is involved or mentioned, that their brains completely disconnect, and they're incapable of any type of rational thought whatsoever. And I think Gary's just is right on. And if you have not heard Caroline Leavitt in her press conference today, from the podium, she laid waste to the media.
Yeah.
And there was another, if you do a Twitter follow or X follow on End Wokeness, End Wokeness did a montage of just talking about how Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, Biden, all talking about, harming President Trump. Even somebody said something about putting a bullet in his head. I mean, on air, this is a media figure, and they are just completely they're just completely insane. And I think to me it's demonic possession is the only thing I can think of. But one thing about this whole thing, I can't understand. I mean, looking at the footage of the guy rushing through the Secret Service security area, I guess the security, it didn't look too secure. He ran through several Secret Service agents or other law enforcement, drew their weapons, and I would assume somebody fired at him, but he wasn't hit. And I'm just like, is this guy like Neo from the Matrix or something like that, and to where he can just evade bullets? Or I was thinking back to the movie Dumb and Dumber, where Harry Dunn has the gun in the hotel room, and he's shooting he unloads the gun from about 25 feet away and misses everything. How does that happen?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I think that guy, somebody either tripped him, he tripped himself, or somebody tackled him. And there is a possibility, they haven't said this, but what I understand about, the rapid pop, 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 pop of gunfire, that guy fired a shot, or he had a shotgun to shoot.
Yeah.
The law enforcement officer who got hit might have been hit by friendly fire, not by, a gunshot that this guy fired. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense to me, like you say, that all these shots were fired and this guy didn't get hit, because these people have to go through regular marksmanship training as law enforcement officers. And, all these guys couldn't hit one guy. It is kind of shocking, unless he did go down at the moment that they were about to fire. Or I don't know. Who knows?
Well, one thing to think about, part of their training is who's on the other side of this guy when you shoot at him, because bullets will go through people and shoot somebody else. They're in there with 2,000 people in the place. They may have just been, afraid to shoot because of collateral damage.
Tell me if you think I'm wrong on this, but I was telling my wife this evening that if I was a person that had any inclination, any thoughts about doing an assassination of the president or anyone in power, that the smart thing for me to do would be to watch the coverage of this assassination attempt, and I could pick up all sorts of pointers, it seems to me, as to what to avoid, what to do. And let me give you one example that I picked up on. I never thought about this, but this guy transported weapons from California to Washington, D.C., and he didn't fly on an airplane. He took a train. I never thought about that. Obviously, we know that he'd have never gotten these weapons through security to get on an airplane, but maybe transporting by train, maybe it's not nearly as hard to do. So I thought, that could be a good. I mean, the coverage of this thing is just it's going to go on for days, and it'll be analyzed up one side and down the other, and crossways. And anyway, just something I picked up on.
Yep, certainly a hotel is extremely poor location to maintain security, because you always have multiple entrances and exits.
Yeah,
people can. It's terrible. It's an awful location.
Does anybody know how long? Does anybody know how long he was actually at the hotel prior? Was he there a day, 2 days, 3 days?
I think he was only there.
He checked in the day prior, I heard.
Yeah, I thought it was only a day or two. Yeah.
But even that you had attendees and you had members of the media talking about how bad how poor the security was, and that they were shocked. I think there were a couple people that actually left, and they thought, I really don't feel safe here. But had their card, didn't even have to show tickets, just said, hey, I'm here's my card, and like, okay, yep, go ahead. It went on in, and normally there's multiple layers of security. There were some ladies that attended correspondents or wives or whatever that said that security didn't even go through their purses, through their handbags. I mean, yeah, there's I don't know. Dan Bongino said something one time, and when this was on the Butler, Pennsylvania thing, and he said that these kind of things, coming from the Secret Service, he said these kind of things don't happen. He goes, like, I think if you go back through and you look at a bunch of President Trump's events, you can see that there's holes in security all over the place, and that was more by design, and that just every so often somebody steps through that door to take advantage of maybe taking the life of the president, which that's a darn scary thought right there.
And think about this. We had the president, we had the vice president, we had Rubio there, Secretary of State, Secretary of War, all those people there. I was Speaker of their House there. Was he there too? And the Senate, all in one location there. If that had been a bomb, if that guy had a bomb, what horrible things could have happened there? I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know who. I wonder who the designated survivor is in the administration.
Yeah, I don't know who it would have been.
Yeah, Senator Chuck Grassley would be president now, they say, if all those people had been taken out.
Wow. Oh, was he the?
I think he's the last guy in line who wasn't there.
Was he?
And he's been in the hospital for, he's 80 something years old, and he's not in great health. So, yeah, I mean, that was crazy to have all the top people in government all in the same place at the same time in a place that's not even secure.
Oh, I think they'll get the ballroom built now. I think that'll be a done deal for sure. Okay.
Well, speaking of Chuck Grassley, that's another reason for term limits. I just want to throw that in there.
Hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. Don't talk about 80-year-old guys that way. I mean,
yeah, we're not going to term limit you yet, Dale, but we're close.
Yeah, they haven't imposed that on state directors yet, or anything like that. So.
All right. Brett, what's on your mind, man?
Well, a couple of things of actually good news. One is that last week, hopefully you saw this, but there was a grand jury in Alabama that actually handed down, 11 different charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center, which the Department of Justice had taken under advisement their findings, and indicted the SPLC for 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of money laundering. And so the Southern Poverty Law Center ostensibly is supposed to be a nonprofit group that fights white supremacy and racial hatred. And then what they do is they report what they determine to be extremist groups or hate groups, and supposedly conduct research to inform law enforcement of some of these groups. And they're widely cited on network news. They're widely cited by political groups, mainly left-leaning groups, and they have been for quite some time. Well, it just so happens that they were actually funding racial hatred and white supremacist groups. For instance, one of the charges in the indictment is that they were paying a member of the leadership group that planned, if you remember, Charlottesville, Virginia, back in 2017, the Unite the Right protest.
That's why Biden ran for the presidency. That was his reason for him getting into the race for presidency.
Yeah, absolutely. So they funded one of the organizers. They also they also funneled money to the and also on the, I think in that Charlottesville, that Unite Right thing, I think that is where it gave rise to Little Adolf, Nick Fuentes, and
really?
I think that he got his. I think he got his start. He was like maybe 18, 19, 17 or something like that during that time. So this guy got like $275,000 over the course of 8 years, but still they also have identified so far for sure at least $3 million that went to hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan. They funded other neo-Nazi groups. I think Patriot Front was one that was another neo-Nazi group, and it's and I think that the SPLC said, is like, although we don't know all the details, the focus appears to be on the SPLC's prior use of paid confidential informants. Okay, well, so whenever you found all this information, that was like hate groups on the left, I don't think you're paying confidential informants inside of, that are leading some of these groups. But even if you are, when you uncovered any, some of this racism on the left, did you report any of that? I don't think you did. And actually, there was another report that there were over 2,000 reports that the SPLC accumulated under their work product, over 2,000 reports of anti-white hate crimes that they did not report. They just glossed those over. They went in a box over in the corner somewhere. So this is actually, I mean, this is a big deal. Hopefully they'll be held liable. Hopefully they'll have their nonprofit status stripped. Hopefully the Anti-Defamation League will meet next, and hopefully this exposure will start to roll back some of this nonsense that, I was thinking, imagine a country that is so racist that you actually have to have anti-racist groups fund racism and invent racist incidents in order to make their point.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Yeah. Ken, maybe someone on our team would be willing to do a presentation on the Southern Poverty Law Center sometime. Maybe someone that knows a little bit about it might want to do a full presentation on that group and what's going on with them.
It's a good topic. Yep.
I don't know if you know of anybody that might be interested in doing that.
Are you suggesting?
I just a thought that came to mind.
I got you. Yeah.
All right.
Hang on to that thought. We'll talk about it.
we can talk.
Yeah, I think I got an idea as to who we might have someone do that. Anyway, all right, good. I've been hearing a lot about that in the news, and it's just amazing to think about that a group would actually be doing that. I mean, you can't make this stuff. You can't make this up. I just unbelievable that would be going on. So, Ken,
the fraud part of this, is that they were funding these and then going to their donors and saying, "Hey, look, this is really bad. You need to give us some more money." Well, that was the fraud element, that they were just, I mean, it's insane to think about what they were really doing.
Yeah. Deviant.
It's just blows my mind to think about that, quite honestly. All right. Thanks, Brett. Gary, Ken, you got anything?
I got a couple of thoughts tonight. Yeah. Just, I want you to think back on the last, say 14, 15 years. And then listen just to a short list I ran into. It's called Life Before Obama. Just think about this. There was no ISIS. There was no Black Lives Matter. There was no Antifa. There was no war on police. There was no law legalizing propaganda on American citizens. There was no Russian hoax. There was no expensive Obama. There was no expensive Obamacare, and there was no TDS. Short 15 years. Look where we are.
Those were the days.
Didn't take long.
Probably just a coincidence.
Oh yeah. Just a coincidence. Okay. Well, I just want to kind of throw that out there to think about that.
That's very.
Go ahead.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to just bring up briefly is we talk about, and it kind of filters into some of those groups that I just mentioned, and this kind of just bleeds over a little bit into immigration. Did you know that in Miami over the weekend a large group of Cubans held a prayer vigil to end communism in their country?
Wow.
A large group of Cubans staged a prayer vigil to end communism in their country.
Wow.
But did you see it reported anywhere? Did you see anybody, asking people, gee, why are you praying for that to happen? And what do you think? What do you think's going on here in the country? It amazes me that when you talk about immigration, and I know we've had a lot of programs on that, and it certainly it's a complicated situation. But when you look at a group of people, Cubans this would have been a good night to have Melba on, but because she is somebody who's our expert on Cuba. But you've got Cubans praying to end communism in their country. So it should be a wake up call. I'll just give it a little tidbit. I attended a conference this weekend that was based on civility, and really what our country needs to do, whether you agree with somebody or not. One of the things I came away from just being at this event was that we really should welcome disagreement, but we should be able to talk about it, and we should be able to. I think that one of the key words was respect. If you respect the other person you're talking to, and you give them 10 minutes for them to give you your viewpoint, and they allow you to give your viewpoint back, you may never totally agree, but if you part as friends, it's the humanity that we're all lacking in our country. So I thought there's a lot. I have some things that hopefully we can bring out here in the next couple of weeks, but to me it was very interesting. It was a group gathering of leaders who all have the same thing in mind, and these were people from all walks of life, from both sides of the parties. It didn't matter, but people got together as human beings, and I think that was what I took away, was the fact that we are all human beings, and whether or not we'll ever be able to totally agree, it is still something that our country was founded on. We had to have diversity in order to build the country we did. And so just a little teaser there, I guess. But that's what I came away with from this weekend. And when I saw the article on the Cubans, I thought, wow, here's a group of people that are praying for their country. And are we praying for our country? So we really need to.
Cuba's kind of taking a back seat on the news here recently with everything else going on, but
sure.
That is a very, very interesting situation there. So
yeah, I agree. We definitely were. I mean, we were built on diverse opinions, but we were built on diverse opinions with a common purpose, and we're lacking a common purpose here now. And speaking about Cuba, one of our members of our legislative team he's a first generation Cuban immigrant. So he's like 79, 80 now. He was smuggled out of Cuba. His parents got him out of Cuba 2 weeks before Castro took over.
Wow.
So he was in the Batista regime is where he had grown up. And it took his parents, I think, 3 years to get out of Cuba. And they were business owners, upper middle class. And they left with with nothing. And it just gets it's so bad that they converted a lot of their money over to diamonds, and they were smuggling diamonds out of the country just so they would have something to live on to start off with in the United States. And just to let you know how bad communism is they're on the way to the airport, and they were stopping off, I think, to see one of his father's sisters. And his father's sister said, "Hey, I just found out that your brother called the Cuban authorities, called the Castro government, and said, 'Hey, these people are headed to the airport and they are trying to smuggle diamonds out of the country.'" And so his own brother reported him, and so they had to dump him. They had to dump him, and so they got, and they were approached at the airport, and they're like, search whatever. I mean, they gave him full body search, just like, we don't have anything. And so it's just so bad. And I think that, whenever he gives testimony for Convention of the States at the Capitol, I mean, he can, and whenever he talks to the legislators, I mean, he can bring a perspective that not too many people can.
Yeah.
While they're praying to get away from communism, we're running headlong into it.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Good. Okay. Well, we're getting about our time's just about up. The point I wanted, the topic that has caught my attention, is the FCC chairman, Brenda Carr, has opened up for public discourse, public comment. I think it ends sometime in May, I believe. But he's taking comment on the possibility of additional movie TV ratings. We as parents, we all raised families under the rating system of general G or PG or R for movies and TV and stuff. And he is opening up. He's requesting comment on possibly adding certain more ratings to reflect gender identity issues, gay or transgender content, or content of that nature. So I think it's very interesting. I don't know. I do remember. I can remember where I think we're all old enough to remember when these the current rating system first came into being. I don't know when was that in the 60s or the 70s, you think, or was it somewhere around there?
Probably the 70s. Probably the 70s.
I do remember there was a lot of controversy over that. So what do you all think about this? Do you think is this information that would be helpful to parents, do you think?
Well, let me throw a wrench in your thinking. When we have social media, which I heard another comment over the weekend, it's really turned into anti-social media. But when we have social media and you've got members of Congress using 4-letter words like it was something that's written on their palms, and you've got social media that's just aloof with these words. Just think about the profanity part of it. This would be unheard of back when they were developing these ratings for movies. Never mind what people might say on a local TV program or like I said, when you're sitting down watching the Congress hold a microphone. Do I think it's useful for parents? My personal opinion, yeah, maybe some, but I think if you just peruse enough social media, the parents themselves are loose cannons as well with 4-letter words. What would a rating mean to those people? I don't know. It would be great, but I don't think it'll work, to be honest with you.
I think it would be a good thing, because a lot of shows, you're halfway through the show and all of a sudden they slap this, transgender thing in your face or something. And it's like, I would never watch this if I'd known that was going to be part of the story. And so I think it would be a good thing to have. I mean, I agree there's all kinds of garbage on the airwaves, but hey, we got to protect ourselves somehow. And I think that would be a good way to start filtering out the stuff that you don't want to be exposed to and don't want your children exposed to if you have young children, which I don't, but grandchildren, yes.
It's a good point, Gary. But what happens when that is brought to the table, and then you have all these groups that are out protesting and showing their bodies and everything else in public, saying, "No, you're squashing my rights. You're squashing my right. I should be my genderism or my pronoun should be represented in movies." I mean, do you think that would ever get by? I don't know.
I think the pendulum is about to start swinging the other way. That's what I think.
I hope so.
I think I hope so. Also, it's a very small percentage of people that really want that stuff.
I know, but they're the ones that make most of the noise.
They're the loudest section of people, that's for sure, and they show up at a lot. But you know what? As I remember when these ratings came in, a lot of the shows were general, and then they started having NC-17, I think is what it was, and then there
PG.
was R.
PG came next.
Yeah, and they were trying to keep their ratings low so they'd get a bigger audience. And like the X, that was shown in very few movie theaters, and they didn't have much audience. I would think if they start putting this rating on any show that's got anything gay or transgender in it, the percentage of that is going to be so high. It might help to get people to have less of that, because it seems like now they can't produce a show without part of it being in the content. I would like to see it help push that down like it did with the old rating system. But I think it would be good for the parents to know that, because I sure as heck wouldn't take anybody to a show that I knew was going to be that way. I turn off the TV all the time because it's in almost every TV show.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but that's what's caught my attention. Well, guys, we're out of time for this segment. Once again, great segment, good discussion, great topics. I wish we had more time because I know some of you had even more topics that you wanted to talk about. So we'll do it another day, okay? So Gary, Tim, thank you very much. Brett, don't go away very long. Brett's going to come back and talk to us about the Chinese. So everybody, thank you very much. Gary, bye. Thank you very much. Good session. Good session. Good segment, Ken. I think again. So let's John Ackerman. John's producing one of these soapbox videos every week now, isn't he? And
yep.
And he does a good job on them. And he's got another one here that I thought was very interesting about holding people accountable. So let's just jump right in and play that for everyone. And then we'll bring Brett back on and talk about his topic this evening. So here's John.
Whoop. What happened to John's volume?
Eloquent by saying something like, "I demand that so-and-so be held accountable." What does that mean, to hold someone accountable? When political figures call for someone to be held accountable, it often sounds meaningful, even forceful, but it's usually just rhetoric with no real meaning. The phrase is vague enough to signal outrage, but there's no commitment to any specific action, no clear consequences, no defined process, no timeline. In many cases, it functions as a way to satisfy public demand for justice in the moment, while sidestepping the harder work of pursuing investigations, enforcing laws, implementing reforms. Because it's usually spoken without meaningful action, holding someone accountable means next to nothing. It's more of a performance gesture than any meaningful step toward real accountability. So, the camera-loving politician who demands accountability, if I may borrow a phrase from the Bard, is just full of sound and fury and signifies nothing. Now, if you want real accountability, you'll hold an Article 5 Amendments Convention to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit its power and jurisdiction, and impose term limits on its officials and members of Congress.
He hit that one on the head.
He sure did. He sure did.
Hit that one right on the nail. Yep.
I tell you, I really enjoy his getting on the soapbox. He really comes up with some very good topics to talk about. So thank you very much, John. Well, I want to get to bring Brett back on here, Brett Sterling, and Brett's going to do a presentation, talk to us about something that caught my attention some time ago when I saw this discussed. It's the unrestricted warfare doctrine from China, and really caught my attention. So I asked Brett to put together some comments and some notes on this topic. So let's bring Brett back on and see what he's got for us. Hello again, Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Hello again, Dale and Ken. How are you?
Good.
Ken, Brett, the unrestricted warfare doctrine. Tell us about when I first heard about this. There was some other. I think Debbie Stewart had done a presentation on Islam, I believe it was, and there was a report that she talked about that was put out by the Muslim Brotherhood, and talked about a program that they have on how to take over the world, how to take over the world with Islam, and all of a sudden I heard about this at the same time on the Chinese and their plan on how to take over the world and mainly take over the United States. And I thought, wow, man, everybody's got a plan on how to take over here. So I wanted to hear more about this. So tell us about this unrestricted warfare doctrine.
Well, everybody does have a plan to take us over, and I wish that we had a better plan to combat it.
Maybe.
But we seem not to have too much stomach for that as a people, which is sad. Europe is totally capitulated. Europe's gone. I did see, it was kind of interesting, just an interesting sidelight. Whenever we went to war in Iran, I saw a meme somebody had done and said, Muslim countries that support the United States action in Iran. It had like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and then it said Muslim countries that do not support the United States action in Iran, and it said England, France, Spain. I thought, boy, that's
Muslim
that's
countries.
Huh? That's exactly right, though. But no, I appreciate you bringing this up, because when you asked me about this, I'm just like, I'd never heard of unrestricted warfare doctrine before. So I appreciate you bringing it up and giving me an opportunity to learn about it. That's one thing that I enjoy about these opportunities so much, because I get to do a little bit deeper dive in some things and learn things that I had no idea about. But
well, we'll try our best to have you allow you to learn a lot more.
Well, I am, there's space left in my brain, so I'm more than happy to take assignments and fill it up. That's for sure.
All right. Okay. All right.
So the unrestricted warfare doctrine what it means is it's a Chinese strategy that uses all military and non-military means to accomplish a certain strategic objective, whether that's economic, political, geographical, how whatever the strategy is. And so the theory was published in a book called Unrestricted Warfare back in 1999 by two authors that I won't pronounce. I'll butcher their names, but last names are Liang and Zhang Sui, and they were officers. I think they were colonels actually in the People's Liberation Army, which is a Chinese Communist Party. That's their military, and they argued that just using conventional military strategy, deploying carrier battle groups and going head on with a technologically superior opponent is just not likely to succeed. So they were looking for other ways to be successful using the military where appropriate, but also non-military means where they could. And it's kind of the if you think about who was it, Sun Tzu? Is that who came up with the art of war? Is that right? Yeah. Where he has all these theories about thinking, taking on your opponent, using their weaknesses to your advantage, and all these different idioms that he had. And this is kind of an outgrowth of this, is what I would think. But they advocated what's called asymmetric warfare, and through military, political, economic, legal, and informational means. And some of the principles here, like asymmetric. What asymmetric warfare is that targeting an opponent's weaknesses, not attacking them head on, but using subterfuge and kind of going around the edges, maybe like outflanking them in attacking them in ways that they don't expect, in an unconventional ways. Then this could be, when I think about the United States, I think our Constitution is a strength, and it is 100%. But how can our Constitution be used against us by entities other than the left that use that against us all the time? But another country, I mean, they could come in, they could look like, okay, well, the United States has a Republican small r form of government and a constitutional process. So there are things that possibly we can do that are outside their rules that the United States will operate in, and that could be exploited as a weakness. And a good example of this would be, like, I don't know, $39 trillion of debt. I mean, that's probably a little bit of a weakness. I mean, how we're going to deal with that, I think that's something that the Chinese can definitely leverage against us.
Well, we have such an open society that I mean, there are so many areas. Something that just popped in my mind, Brett, is our birthright citizenship. The Chinese, send a lady over here to our country, has a baby, that baby becomes a citizen. They bring the baby back to China, raise it there, and that baby comes back 20 years later and runs for office in some locality where he or she is located as a U.S. citizen.
Yep.
I mean, that's our society. That's our open society. I just find this very intriguing as to all the possibilities of how this doctrine can be implemented. So just a thought that popped in my mind on this.
No, you're 100% correct. And I think it's naivete on some people's part. It's I guess it's facilitation on some other people's parts, depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on.
Yeah.
But no, you're 100% correct. I mean, that's a massive vulnerability. You just look at the last 4 years under the Biden administration. That how many millions of illegal immigrants do we have here? That their very first action was refusing to follow our laws. So once they're in the country, do you think that we're going to follow them that much? Once they get here, they definitely don't set a good precedent. And so whether there's, they're always talking about 11 million. We've had 11 million illegal aliens here for like the last 25 or 30 years. It's got to be 20 or 30 million at least anyway.
Yeah.
And so then you're looking that somewhere between 7.5% and 10% of our population could be here illegally. I mean, that's national suicide. It's stupid.
And they sure aren't going to show up for their court date.
They're not going to do that. No, not even if you set it, not 7 years in the future. If you set it like 7 days in the future, still not going to be there. No, right. Absolutely, it's crazy. But one of the other principles that they outlined here in this book was use of what they call multi-domain operations. And so what that is, it's use of things like cyber warfare, disinformation campaigns, and I think look at artificial intelligence. I mean, I think that's a massive vulnerability right there of how pervasive that they could make that a foreign entity could make some disinformation campaigns. And you think back in the 1930s with H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, where everyone this was on the radio and everyone thought that we were getting attacked by the aliens. I mean, well, just think how this could be with AI now. I think that's a massive vulnerability there. They also advocated what they call non-military leverage, which examples are using lawfare, trade policy, financial influence, and just overall just being more agile than their opponent. And then finally, they said using strategic philosophy, like using, again, like foreign policy, diplomatic measures, and cultural influences to achieve military objectives. So that's the crux of the unrestricted warfare doctrine. And I think you see this because you see all the especially in the cyber attacks. I mean, we have, China, the Chinese Communist Party has legions of people that they just sit behind computers, and their mission is to try to find a way to hack into certain systems. It could be something minor, but could be something like into our banking system. What if they, as connected as everything is, how about, if they could shut off some of the infrastructure, like for our water, for our power grid.
Well, lots been talked about the electrical grid in our country and how
absolutely
we are there. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And where a lot of those components that are used in our power grid, in our food distribution, our food network, in our military, where a lot of those chips made. A lot of those chips are made, in China, or we do get a considerable majority from Taiwan, but the precursors for those chip manufacturing, comes from China, or it comes from Chinese operated mines in Africa. And so look at the solar power, look at the solar grid. I mean, it's really kind of, I'd say scary. It's at least concerning to be as the number of vulnerabilities that we do have, and that they're fully intent on using this. And when I was studying this, it kind of made me think about something else that kind of dovetails in with this. That it's called the Belt and Road Initiative, and this is something here that's an outgrowth of this unrestricted warfare doctrine. And the Belt and Road Initiative was introduced by Chinese President Xi Jinping I believe in 2017, 14 maybe. But it's an attempt to connect Asian, African, and European countries' infrastructure, political associations, and economies. And just some examples of that. And this, like I said, this is an outgrowth of unrestricted warfare doctrine. To date, from my research, it looks like about 150 countries and 30 international organizations have either signed official agreements with China or expressed interest in participating in this Belt and Road Initiative. So what exactly does that mean? And to us, and what exactly is a threat? Well, a lot of what they do is they will sign these economic agreements with impoverished nations like in Africa, and they will offer financial assistance and economic assistance to these nations in return for access to their deep water ports. And what can they do in deep water ports? Well, you can dock warships. And so this basically it extends the Chinese infrastructure, their military infrastructure, in various parts of the world to where they don't have any kind of presence before. And just as a to let you know exactly how extensive this is, their Chinese state-owned firms are active in 78 ports across 32 African countries. They either help build the ports, they finance their ports, or they operate the ports. If you remember, just up until last year, there's a Chinese company owned and operated both ends of the Panama Canal.
I was going to say the Panama Canal comes to mind with this Belt Road initiative. Yeah,
exactly. That's in our hemisphere, and you look at what goes through there. You just fun things like cruise ships. I mean, those are cool, but also you look at how much U.S. trade goes through the Panama Canal. Mm-hmm. Our military ports, our military ships, warships going through the Panama Canal. I mean, thankfully, President Trump kind of stood up to that and got that got that out of the hands of the Chinese. But if you look at just in West Africa, there are 35 deep water ports. Okay, well, which side of Africa is the United States on? It's on the west. East Africa has 17. Southern Africa has 15 ports, and Northern Africa, and where does that point? That points into the Mediterranean, into France, into Spain, into Italy. They have 11 ports in North Africa. So, I think that this is and there's some key strategic ports in Nigeria, in Kenya, Nambia. There's also projects going on right now throughout Africa, in Ghana, Senegal, Cameroon, Uganda. All these, this is all just a way for the Chinese government to expand, and that's outside of what they're doing already in the South China Sea, to where they're building these atolls, these basically man-made islands, and just saying, okay, well, you know what, we're going to claim that this is going to be Chinese territory here, and it's in the middle of international water. And so what that is doing is giving them bases to launch attacks to Taiwan, against Taiwan, or even Australia and New Zealand. So they play the long game here, and this is just a very, very dangerous strategy. And thankfully, we do have a president in the White House now that, well, one is like conscious, because we didn't have one for 4 years, but is intent on pushing back on this and flexing the United States muscle. But if he's going to be termed out in 2028, he's not going to run for the third term. Sorry to make all the lefties all mad out there.
Right.
It's not going to happen. But if somebody like a J.D. Vance is not elected next, what if we go back to a leftist administration? I mean, this is these are existential threats to the United States, and something we need to take seriously.
I agree. I agree with you. I think it's something we need to learn more and more about. And when you think about Trump's emphasis on the Western Hemisphere, and I mean, this all plays into it, in my opinion. It's quite interesting. It's quite scary, but it's quite interesting, and I think there's a lot more to learn about it and to know about it. But our society is so open that we're so vulnerable in so many areas. We could talk a lot about this. We're about out of time on this segment, but we could go on and on this, I think.
Yeah, the bottom line is we're just lazy, and we don't know what we have. And as long as the internet works and our Netflix subscription is up and running, hey, life's good. Let's go.
It's good. Yep. Spoiled.
Yes.
That's the word that comes to mind. Yeah.
What were we watching? Oh, I was watching the other night. Here we are in a war with Iran, and the big item in the news recently has been the football draft. I mean, we just playing football is the number one thing.
Yeah, they had. I can't remember. I heard something. I mean, there were several 100,000 people that attended that live over 3 days. And
yeah,
I don't
over 200,000. I think. I think I heard 300,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. I mean, they got all upset about that. Well, we should have drafted. My team should have drafted a right guard instead of a punter, or something like that. You're like, what? You do understand that you just sitting on your couch, just like if we fail to act, then guess what? There is no football, and and so then you're going to be sitting there just like, oh wow, what happened? Like, well, we've been trying to wake you up for the last couple decades.
They're coming to dress you up like a gladiator and put you in the ring. You're going to fight a lion.
100%. I mean, you're going to be real life Hunger Games right now. That's what we're going after. So yeah,
Hunger Games, right? Yep.
Okay, all right, Brett, you got us stirred up now. So
sleep well, everybody.
Oh yeah.
One eye
seriously,
open.
I think there's more to this, and I'd like for you to come back again and talk to us about it, because like I said, I think there's more to it, and there are so many areas where we're vulnerable. We haven't even touched on the Chinese influence on a lot of the protesting that goes on in this country, and how that's we talked about the Southern Poverty Law Center, but the Chinese play a role in this, in a lot of the protesting going on in this country too. So,
yeah, look at Chinese funding of universities.
Yeah,
is billions of dollars.
Yeah, they've got it figured out. You have to recognize the intelligence involved in this, in developing this. So anyway. Very good, Brett. Thank you very much, and
thank you.
We'll move on here. So have a good day, Brett. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
Oh, that's very interesting, Ken. I want Brett to come back and talk more about this doctrine. I want Debbie to come back and talk more about this. For the life of me, I can't think of the doctrine that she was talking about. Right now, but these are things going on in our country that I think are just so interesting and scary at the same time. Well, listen, we got another soapbox here. Gary Harbaugh has jumped on his soapbox and talking about affordability, and I think listen very closely to this, because I think Gary does a really, really good job on this. Um, and it's something that I think we need to take apart and talk about some of the different areas that he touches on here. So let's let Gary talk about
Bring Gary
affordability.
on. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, it's Gary with Convention of States. And I want to talk a little bit about the affordability crisis that is impacting millions of people across.
Okay, what happened here?
Well, let's see. Let's get him on. How about this?
Three aspects of this I'm going to talk about: housing, income inequality, and then general inflation. First of all, housing. For more than 20 years, we've been underbuilding housing. We've not built enough to really keep up with the rate of knockdowns of obsolete housing, and that destroyed through fires, floods, natural disasters, etc. And that's just a long-term problem. It's driven in part by regulations, regulation, minimum lot sizes, minimum this, minimum that. All these requirements and regulations, land use restrictions, zoning, etc., have made housing more expensive and less affordable. Makes it difficult for people to afford housing. The second thing, or the third aspect of that, really, besides underbuilding and regulation, is the zero interest rate policies. Zero interest rate policy, which prevailed very largely from 2008 through 2022. There was a period in there, a couple of years before COVID, when rates were starting to rise, but still remain very low by historical periods. We had a 14-year period with very low interest rates. This drove investors to buy housing. Huge amounts of housing were bought up by investment groups, turned into rentals, and the cost of housing more than doubled over that 14-year period for almost all the housing in America. So what you're having is wages don't more than double, so it creates an affordability crisis. The second aspect is income inequality. And incomes in America, the portion of it, the percentage of it that's been going to wages has been going down very slowly, but very dramatically over about a 50-year period, so that wages earned by ordinary people or wage earners is a lower portion of all income that's earned as compared to rents and profits, capital gains, etc. So lower wages for average working people. This has been caused in part by illegal immigration generally, and illegal immigration in particular, because immigrants come in and take low-skilled jobs and in some cases skilled work, but they drive wages down. And so that's part of the reason that's driving wages down. Also, when millions of people come in, they got to be housed somewhere. Government subsidizing housing for illegal immigrants is driving up demand while driving down wages. This makes the affordability crisis worse. And the third aspect of the affordability crisis is really general inflation. Things like food, whether it's groceries or restaurant meals, have been a big driver of inflation, and healthcare costs have been a big driver of inflation. Why have healthcare costs gone up, you may ask? We have Obamacare. Everybody looks back now and realizes that Obamacare, rather than making healthcare more affordable for more people, it's made it less affordable for most everybody. And why do we have these government policies that make things worse for average people? Well, studies indicate that something like 94 to 95% of all political donations come from about 10% of the people, and about 70% of all political donations come from just 1% of the people. So who do you think is driving policies that are being made by government, not just the federal level, but the state level and the local level? It's the people who fund the campaigns. Government is working great for the people who fund the campaigns. For the most part, there's fights over which side should fund it, or which side should be in control, but both sides want control because government is way too big and spends way too much money. Convention of States wants to put limits on federal spending, limits on exercise of federal power, the things the federal government is involved in, and, oh, by the way, term limits. The framers of our Constitution understood that government tends to come under the influence of people who benefit from government. When you have a very small government, there's not that many people, and they don't benefit that much. When you have a really big government spending a third, 30% of GDP, then there are many people who both have tremendous desire to influence government policy and people who want to get on the gravy train to benefit from government spending. That's why we want to have a convention of states. The affordability crisis at its core is driven in many respects by government policies, whether it's loose monetary policy causing inflation, illegal immigration, driving down wages, driving up costs, or just the underbuilding of housing because of all these factors working together. That's how I see it. The affordability crisis is, a lot of it is just driven by bad government policy. I'm Gary, and that's how I see it.
There was a lot packed in there that Gary talked about.
Sure was. Yep.
Housing, income equality, inflation, zero interest rate policy. Each of those we could talk. We could do a whole presentation on each of those, and all coming together to affect the overall affordability. So I'm sure most people don't even think of it in that respect.
That's true. Yeah.
Looking at gas prices, and that's basically
as deep as it goes. It's true. Yeah.
Very good. We'll get Gary to come back on and expand upon that too. So, well, let's move on, Ken. I caught up recently with Larry Hudson, and Larry does our Meet the Founders series, and we're still on Sam Adams, and this is episode number 4. I think, Gary, according to Larry, we got maybe one more episode, maybe 2 to go on Sam Adams, but it's been very interesting. We're picking it up here on this episode from the shot heard around the world. So that rings a bell with a lot of people, I'm sure. So let me bring on the recording that I did with Larry, and we'll all be back here with you very shortly. Thanks a lot. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Today host. We're here today to continue with our series, our Meet the Founders series, and we've been dealing with Sam Adams. So I want to bring on Larry Hudson, and we'll get going here on episode number 4. So let me bring on Larry here. Hello, Larry.
Dale, how are you?
Larry? Good.
Good to see you.
Larry, good to see you, bud. Thanks for coming on tonight. And Larry, we're here on episode number 4. And we left off the last time. We were talking about Sam Adams. And of course, we were talking about the shot heard around the world following the Battle of Concord. So, no, excuse me, we were going to follow up with the Battle of Concord, right?
Yeah.
So well, I'll tell you, why don't you just pick it up from there, and we'll keep going forward here.
Okay.
We'll
do it. You bet. The phrase, what you said, the shot heard around the world. I did not know this. I came across this in my reading. It was actually coined by Emerson in a poem. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time when we left or not, but it was a poem, a short poem actually, entitled The Concord Hymn. And the phrase didn't really come into use in this country until well after the Battle of Concord. It was in 1837. And of course, the Battle of Concord was in 1775. So 60 plus years later.
Wow.
The first shots were obviously fired on the Lexington Green. We don't dispute that. But the phrase, the shot heard around the world, itself came as a result of the Battle of Concord that followed Lexington. So I guess maybe as time passed, we've not given much attention to the Battle of Concord, at least not I haven't read much about it until recently. And inadvertently, perhaps, we've allowed that phrase to be linked to the first shot at Lexington, which is true, but not historically maybe correct, I guess. So that phrase really didn't refer to the battle at Lexington.
Well, most of us have heard a lot about the Battle of Lexington, but as you are pointing out here, it was more of a skirmish than a real battle. The real battle was Concord, and because Concord was different, and according to what you're saying here. So, what can you tell us about the Battle of Concord?
Well, you remember Major Pitcairn. He's the guy with the detachment there at Lexington. He and his regulars, they continued. They were on a mission. They originally sought to capture Sam Adams and, of course, his running mate, John Hancock, there in Lexington. But their orders were twofold. They were to march on to Concord, where they hoped to uncover a hidden cache of gunpowder, munitions. I think there were even supposed to be a couple of cannon up there in Concord. So basically, John Barrett, a colonel, led his militia from the center of town across to the Old North Bridge, it was called, to a hill about a mile north. And there they watched the British move as they came into the town center of Concord, searching, buildings for arms and munitions. They were burning things, breaking into buildings, primarily outbuildings, looking for a cache of weapons. And during this same period of time, the militia, the colonial militia, their ranks grew to about 400 people. This is after Lexington, of course, as Minutemen companies arrived from, the surrounding area. And so they now are going to outnumber the Brits with manpower. Nobody knows that, but that's what's going to happen. So soon they encounter the Brits, who have got, I think, 2 light infantry companies, about 100 total, and a small detachment of regulars have occupied this Old North Bridge in order to block it. And from depositions on both sides, we know that the British fired the first volley. They killed a couple and wounded a few. And then there's a quick return volley from the Patriots, and 4 Redcoats died, I think, on the bridge. And the militia lost 2, I think, in that exchange. And that's the volley that Ralph Waldo Emerson immortalized in his Concord hymn, "The Shot Heard Around the World." Here, I've got a little quote. I'll read it for you. It's a very short poem. Here's the first stanza. "By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmer stood and fired the shot heard round the world." The poem was actually read at a dedication to what was called a battle monument. And that monument was erected at the site of the Old North Bridge. It's no longer there, I guess, the original, in Concord, back in 1836. And it commemorated, the first major armed conflict of the American Revolution, the shot that was heard around the world. British quickly evacuate the bridge. They head back to town to regroup back into Concord. And in the ensuing firefight, the British suffered really heavy casualties. And in the mayhem that took place, they try to reconstitute their ranks, and they make a dash for Lexington to get back to Lexington. And during this retreat, they took additional casualties in sporadic firefights. One of the most notable to me in reading was an ambush that was conducted by the reassemble, I think was the word used, ranks of John Parker's militia. John Parker was the militia leader at Lexington. And this became known as Parker's Revenge.
Oh, okay.
They suffered a number of casualties in that somewhat brief skirmish. So it was like Parker got his revenge from what happened at Lexington.
I see. Okay. So you're saying that the Battle at Concord was a very significant battle, and the one that actually sparked the beginning of the Revolutionary War, right?
Yeah, definitely, yes. As this battle isn't over by a long shot, the Concord battle. After a few hours rest, the Brits decide they got to get back to Boston. And they decide to go the way they came, which is through Lexington and then on down to Boston. So this retreat is often called by historians the Battle Road. And it's very costly for them. Instead of meeting the Redcoats conventionally, line abreast and firing volleys in the open field, if you will, which was customary, the militia chose a different tactic. It was coming toward night. They decided to hide behind stone fences, whatever was available, trees, ravines. They were even inside houses in some cases and barns that bordered the trail that the Brits were really forced to retreat on, and they fired on them as they marched along what amounted to about 6 miles of road that was heavily wooded on both sides in several stretches. So this was a much more organized battle. Even you might even call it an ambush in a sense, rather than the confused, lopsided skirmish that had occurred at Lexington. And here, as I alluded to earlier, the Brits were outnumbered. They were being shot at, on both sides of the road, and they incurred heavy casualties along this tactical retreat to Lexington. Upon hearing those shots first fired, now remember, Adams and Hancock have escaped. They're still in Lexington, so they're in the vicinity, and they know shots have been fired. And supposedly, Adams is reported to have declared to Hancock, "What a glorious morning this is."
Oh, okay.
He's not a combatant, but
yeah,
excited. We're at war.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I tell you, I don't know that I've ever heard about this battle. So what was the actual outcome then?
Well, by the time the British get back to Lexington, they're basically demoralized, pretty much out of ammo. Fortunately, they do get reinforced, and they get their numbers up to about 1,000. They got some regulars under a lieutenant colonel from Boston. They also brought some cannon with them. I think there were 2 field pieces. But even with those reinforcements, the march from Lexington to Boston, and they have to go through Charleston, which it turns out to be, I think it's almost 15 miles, 12 to 15 miles. And it still had to be made. And as I said, night's falling. And so the militia is sniping at them all along the way. The battle actually ended with, get it here, 273 British regulars killed, wounded, or missing, as opposed to 95 American militiamen killed, wounded, or missing. So it was a humiliating defeat for the British. They're now bottled up in Boston with about 6,000 soldiers. And as early as the next morning, they find themselves surrounded by almost 10,000. We covered this when we talked about Washington and the battle of the siege of Boston. About 10,000 militiamen are streaming in from, I think there were at least 3, if not 4 different colonies in the Northeast where these militia came from. So Concord was a really good victory for the militia, and the shots have definitely been fired on both sides. I have a quote here. One historian wrote, quote, "Thus began the American Revolution, a revolution not just for the people of Massachusetts, but for the cause of liberty for all mankind, such rights not being temporal, but eternal." And with that shot, farmers, laborers, landowners, and statesmen alike brought upon themselves the sentence of death for treason.
Wow.
So it was an instrumental battle, and one that I had no idea was like that.
I can imagine 10,000 militiamen gathering. That's a lot of guys. That's a lot of soldiers. My goodness.
Yeah, and they're somewhat leaderless, as we'll discover here in a little bit.
Okay. Well, the war has officially begun. Maybe not at Lexington, but certainly at Concord. And like you said, Sam Adams is very happy about it. Now he's not a soldier in this battle, but what's he doing now? Where is he now? What's he doing?
Well, a little less than a month, I think, mid-May. Adams, he's far away. He's in Philadelphia, along with Hancock, and along with his cousin John Adams. They're serving in the Second Continental Congress. Now, Dale, remember, Adams and Hancock were nearly captured by the Brits there in Lexington back in April. So this is just a month previous. So in May, they've traveled to Philadelphia. And that first month in the Congress, Adams is appointed to no less than 6 committees, which was far more than any other delegate. And I think there were 50 delegates altogether in that first Congress. Or I'm in the second. It's the Second Continental Congress, not the First Continental. So he's busy. He's busy.
He is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you say there that he played a part in selecting George Washington as the commander-in-chief.
Yes, he
of
did.
the Army, right?
Yes.
So tell us how that happened. That's obviously a very significant thing in this whole process.
Yeah. It's interesting how it turns out, because I didn't know this either in my reading. First order of business, of course, after they got the word from the battles of Lexington and Concord, is we need an army. We're at war now. We've got to select a commander in chief, to lead that army. The Boston has been occupied by the British, but they're now surrounded and under siege by these 10,000 generally, I should say, unorganized militiamen. Adams
that's a very interesting point. So there wasn't an army here as yet, right?
No, they were all militias from the various colonies, and then there were militias from the various counties within these colonies. So it was just a bunch of people that they all had their individual leaders, but they had no overall leader. Actually, there's one guy that kind of took charge because of his rank, and we'll meet him in just a minute. But you're right. There's no organized effort. Washington is going to be chosen, as we're going to find out, and he's going to have to bring this army under his command. And it's a combination of conscripts, if you will, not conscripts, they're all volunteers, but they're militiamen. And there's he calls his army regulars, and he really doesn't like the militia all that well, because they have allegiances to their own colonies, and they're not really fighting for they're not fighting for, if you will. Right. So that's one of his big problems.
Wow.
Adams is a firebrand now, total independence, pushing for a formal break from Great Britain. He's quick to support the idea, of a continental army, and he argues, for it, and he's successful in getting it created, because I think it was in June of 74. June of 75, that the army, or the Continental Army, is established, and now they need to find a leader.
That's amazing. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, was Washington the only person considered for this, or were there others?
No, that's the interesting point. Again, new material for me. Several candidates, actually. Artemus Ward, a general, I don't remember where he was from necessarily, but he was in charge of this gaggle that basically had Boston surrounded, and the establishment of the Continental Army, he was a natural possibility. There was a Charles Lee. He was a former British officer. He chose to fight for the Americans, kind of a hothead. I don't think anybody really felt that he would ever be selected, but he was in the running. And John Hancock, of all people, the president of the Continental Congress, thought he should be the commander-in-chief. And so they were all in line for the job. Now, both Sam Adams and John Adams believed differently. In order to unite the colonies, these two were convinced, and they had talked about this for a number of weeks. They thought that the leader had to be from a southern colony. They liked Virginia. It was a significant colony, a large colony. It was influential. It was capable of rallying support from the other colonies, if you will. And Washington, now a colonel, was a Virginia delegate in that Congress. And he'd earned, we talked about Washington way back when. He'd earned a lot of reputation for his leadership during the French and Indian War. So Sam had worked with Washington, as I read, on a couple of congressional committees addressing war preparedness or something like that. So he knew Washington as well. So he's quick to second his cousin's motion, John Adams, that George Washington be the commander-in-chief. Hancock, he's pretty confident that Adams was going to nominate him. And so when this motion came out and Sam Adams was quick to second it, he was devastated. And he and Adams were never friends after that point, really. They reconciled much later on when they both become governor and lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. But right now, that's a rift. So Washington, interestingly, also came attired in his military uniform, militia, on the day of selection. And Congress voted, and as you might suspect, it was unanimous. Nobody else got any votes.
Okay, our time's up on this episode right now, Larry. So we'll pick it up there the next time where George Washington takes over as commander-in-chief. But before we do this, so am I correct that George Washington wanted this job? He wanted to be the commander?
It's one of those. From what I've read, and then I watched a video. I can't remember where I watched it, and it was a recreation of this episode. And Washington has sat through several meetings, and he's never said, "I want to be the commander-in-chief." I don't know that the Adams ever talked to him about it and said, "Would you, if we nominated you," or anything like that. But he's obviously there. He's distinguished. He's taller than anybody in the room by about 6 inches. So, I don't know. I think, in my heart of hearts, I think he wanted the job. Yeah. Why else would he come to the day that they're going to have the vote?
Right.
Why is he there in his uniform?
Right. That kind of, when you said that kind of made me,
to me, that kind of gives it away. But
okay.
I've never read anything that, he politicked for the job or anything.
Okay. Well, Larry, we'll pick it up there on episode 5. George Washington is now the commander-in-chief, and we'll pick it up there. Okay.
Yeah. Too many rabbit holes.
But they're all interesting, Larry.
Well, they're interesting, maybe not to everybody, but
I think so. So, Larry, thank you very much, bud. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Well, folks, that's a wrap then on episode number 4. I don't know how many episodes we're going to create here, but I find them all interesting, and I think Larry just does a great job. So hang with us, and we'll see you again next time for episode number 5. So everyone, have a good evening.
Good old Sam.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Larry does a good job on this.
He sure does. Yeah.
I learn something every episode. He gives me notes ahead of time as to what he's going to talk about and questions. He makes it very easy for me. He even tells me what to say, what to ask during this.
He gives you the questions ahead of time, does he? Okay.
Yeah, but it's just very interesting. And he said too many rabbit holes. Well, that's when he goes off topic and talks about something that he read or something that pertains to what we're talking about. So, but they're all very interesting. So
he loves his history.
He just does that great job for us.
He loves his history. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's move on, Ken. We got another Dave's Daily Dose from our friend up in Minnesota, David Punt. And this one's a few weeks old. This was one that he did back few weeks ago during the birthright citizenship episode in the Supreme Court. So this is a few weeks old, but David's on a vacation right now. So we'll hopefully he'll be back next week and we'll get back on track with him. But let's listen to him, what he has to say here.
Okay.
We'll no doubt be talking about yesterday's Supreme Court oral arguments on the subject of birthright citizenship until the decision comes down, probably in late June. Of course, I don't know that, but for a case like this, it seems time will stand still and only race on at the last minute. Or not. I didn't listen to all of the oral arguments, just enough to wet my whistle and make me want to find time in the next couple of days to listen to the whole 2 or 3 hours. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Solicitor General John Sauer argued the case for the government, the plaintiff in the Trump v. Barbara case, supporting President Trump's executive order. His interpretation of birthright citizenship, as outlined in the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, hinges on the line in the amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The order blocked citizenship to children born of illegal aliens in this country, and the EO was put on hold by a whole bunch of district judges deciding in lots of individual cases to put the decision on hold, which is where the Supreme Court came in. The administration sued. The American Civil Liberties Union argued the case for the defendants, the people named Barbara. It's not her real name, and she's not the only one in the suit. There are 3 women in the suit, all with children born since the order was made last February, all who have become American citizens since the order, all assumedly not under the jurisdiction of the United States. Lots of interesting tidbits have come out of just the portion of the arguments I heard. Solicitor General Sauer mentioned a guy named Richard Flournoy, who worked for FDR. Citizenship was restricted to people who intended to live here and swore allegiance to the United States since the 19th century case of Wong Kim Ark. But Flournoy, who worked for FDR's State Department, changed that. And only since the 1930s has any pregnant woman strolling through the country and has a kid here has the instant citizenship game been played. Trump himself referred to birthright tourism, when Chinese folks would fly over to have birth and fly back to China, never intending to stay or continue under U.S. jurisdiction and only cash in the U.S. citizenship card later in life. Another interesting wrinkle has the media in a tizzy that President Trump was the first to sit in on oral arguments in a case. Democrat attorney Alan Dershowitz doubts that just because nobody keeps track of who sits in the gallery. He mentions that Thomas Jefferson probably stopped in when his cousin, John Marshall, heard cases. And he remembers Bobby Kennedy stopping in for oral arguments now and then. Lots more to come. The final decision, like I say, will be handed down in June. I'm David Allen Punt.
Well, we may get get him back in June when we get a little more information, and hopefully, he said we hear back by then on that situation.
That is going to be a very, very interesting decision.
Sure enough.
It sure will.
Sure enough.
It has a lot of implications, I think.
Yep.
Well, all right, Ken. We've had a good program tonight, I think. So let's start wrapping things up here for this evening, and just want to make sure to let people know, if you're trying to find us to watch our live broadcast, I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States, and search on that and go to that YouTube channel. That's probably the best place to find our live broadcast, American Patriots for Convention of States. So that's the place to go. Any comments or questions that you might have about tonight's broadcast, drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Well, Kim, before we let Marengo Mike close us out here, did we have any comments or questions from our viewers this evening?
Well, just one that I'll put up. It goes back to obviously the first segment that we talked about, but right here we had one of our friends, old Robert Suarez, said, "This is a spiritual battle. It is not a rational thought issue. We need to get back to God." That was his comment concerning our In Focus segment.
Was that okay?
Yeah.
Well,
I put a link to the program there right now in the chat.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, once again, we thank everyone for tuning in this evening, and we hope you've enjoyed our broadcast. We worked very hard to bring this to you, and it's a task, a weekly task. And now that I moved, I can refocus on COS Today. So once again, Ken, I want to thank you and Debbie for filling in last week.
Not a problem. We enjoyed it. Yep.
I enjoy being back and being at it again. So let me find Marengo Mike here, and let's let him close us out for this evening. So once again,
yep.
Everyone, thank you very much, Ken, and everyone have a good evening. Good night, everyone.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition, and consider using your talents to become